Hey guys, it's Kathy, as per usual, with absolutely no notice to anyone. We're here today to address a couple of topics that are very, very near and dear to my heart, whether you're joining us and will be joining us during this live stream, or will be joining us as a lot of my supporters and followers do, which is afterwards. I appreciate your time and your attention. And we're here today to talk about the First Amendment and its application to the Kohberger case. Hey, William. Hi, Christine. By the way, I love your new avatar. It's got everybody in the Halloween mode. What's going on? Oh, Steven's here as well. How's everybody doing? First day of October. I appreciate y'all being here with absolutely no notice, which is how we roll because we're independent. I think I've done, ever since I started the podcast, it's been about almost 2 years now, the Idaho versus Kohberger podcast, and then came up here on the YouTube channel. I think I've had maybe 8 lives. All but 6 of them were planned. They're usually like this. When I feel that there's something I'd like to chat to you about, then we usually will go ahead with no notice. So I'm really thankful that everybody dropped what they were doing to be here. It means a lot to me. Christina, thank you. Crossroads Accounting and Tax, keep this up. What you are doing is important, Kathy. What you guys are doing is important. I appreciate it because what has troubled me a little bit lately is that people that are still interested in the case, whatever side you're on, it's really not even about guilt or innocence at this point. It's about the First Amendment and that this case was so closed for so long, that it was such a high profile case, and about the dangerous precedent that it's setting. And then as subtext, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, if you feel that when Mr. Kohberger stood up in open court almost 3 months ago today, tomorrow it will be 3 months that the trial got canceled. Do you see how quickly time goes by? If you feel he was coerced or he gave up, or for whatever reason, maybe he should have gone to trial, but he didn't. Or if you feel, hey, the reason why he pled guilty is because he was the sole and the correct defendant, that at this point is a subtext to the more important issue, which is that this case has been sealed from the public for almost 3 years. No trial happened, right? As soon as he stood up in open court, the trial that was supposed to happen in August, it got canceled. And so why wasn't the case that, hey, they had no problem sealing documents real quickly. All someone needed to do, and this is my opinion that I give under the First Amendment, is say, hey, judge, seal this. And it was like sometimes it was the same day that documents got sealed. So why is it taking 2 months to decide finally if documents from July and May should be unsealed or not? Do you know they're still not finished with that analysis? And in my opinion, it is unacceptable to shut out the public this long for as much as they did. I did not agree with a lot of the documents that got sealed to begin with. And now to go through this long and drawn out process, I don't understand it. So 6 likes, 13. Yes, if everyone could please like, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, Stephen. Now, I wanted to find out is there any way that you guys can pull up. I'm really proud of this content that we just put out for a lot of reasons. Hi, Tina. Thank you. Hi, Tina. Tina's saying they never intended for us to know the truth. Well, when you hide the facts for as long as they're being hidden here, a lot of people feel the same way you do, Tina. I published this morning something that I've been working on for a little while. It's called Case Closed, Months Later, Case Still Sealed, Idaho versus Kohberger, and the First Amendment. This is a First Amendment case that I think in years to come that law students and college students and maybe even government students in high school are going to be learning about. The idea that why did the First Amendment always take the back seat, even after the case was closed? all of these motions to seal, all of this information. When you see discovery, motion to seal discovery, does anyone know what discovery is? Tiny crumbs to keep us busy. Yes. And maybe, Stephen, and maybe a little bit of red herrings. Hey, let's throw out all of this video of Mr. Kohberger walking around Albertsons so people can talk about his pants and his hair. And not the more important issue that this case is still sealed 3 months after he pled guilty from the public. Evidence. There's Christina. Hi, Sarah. So glad you're here. Sarah's a big, and she's got her coffee with her. Big documents person, and she shares the documents, which is so important. Discovery is evidence. Yes. So when you look at what I'm urging everyone to do is, it's been a while since this case was open, and I know a lot of you have been following it from the start, so we may forget about the motions to seal things that started flying across the docket in January. Remember, it was in January 3rd, that Thompson and Taylor signed the motion for a non-dissemination order. And so that's pretty much, that was the gag order that was in place until the media stepped up in mid-July, and they demanded that Judge Hippler, this is ridiculous to have this gag order in place still, right? And so then we got the gag order set aside. At that same time, the media, however, wanted one of the documents unsealed. And Judge Hippler said, nope, not going to do that. Denied. He didn't even have a hearing on it. It was during the hearing on the motion to set aside the non-dissemination, aka gag order, that he brought up, or the media did. Someone brought up the fact there was a second motion out there, July 14th, 2024. I've written about it and spoken about it in this content today. But when you have an opportunity, please go back onto the docket and look at July 14th, 2024. It was the media coming back in. That's who got the gag order set aside. So let's hear it for them. They did something right with doing that. They fought it really hard. They fought to get that gag order set aside way back when it was in Latah County. They even went to the Idaho Supreme Court and tried to do it, and they finally were successful in July. At the same time, they filed a motion to be heard on the issue of these sealed documents. And there is, for as much as people talk about mainstream media, and I can definitely understand, they are, in my opinion, not doing their job. Their job should be, why is this case still sealed? Not putting together video of suspect. Oh, let's take a look. It's, oh, well, yes, it looks like an Elantra. No, it doesn't look like an Elantra and all. How about the bigger issue? The fact that this case is still sealed and we don't know what the evidence is. We don't know what this discovery is, that both of them, state and defense, wanted sealed from you, the public. When you see a motion to seal, that means they don't want the public to see something. That's what that means. When you see a stipulation to seal, that means both sides came together, went to the court, and I can't remember of maybe there's got to be 100 or more motions to seal. The media actually counted them, and they said how many motions to seal were granted. That no judge ever, oh, well, we got to have a hearing on this. Well, what about the public's right? No, they granted everyone, but now they got to take months, possibly years, to go back and to reverse those decisions to close this case. I don't understand it. Tina, he definitely said, then forgot he said it or something. Who are you talking about, Tina? Didn't Hippler said he wouldn't seal? Oh, yeah. Christina, are you talking about the media was, hey, Amy, thank you for being here. I'll have a cup of coffee. I see you got two. Did you bring me one? I'd love one right about now. We forgot about that. You know who pushed that issue? Who pushed that envelope forward? It was the media. They came back in January. They were upset that Hippler was closing all of the hearings. When Detective Brett Payne was going to testify for the first time, he closed that hearing. He sealed all of the stuff, Frank's motion, all under seal, all of the motions to suppress evidence, all under seal. They got up, they came back and they wanted to be heard, and there was a hearing, and Hitler said, I told these guys, I told them, stop filing all these motions to seal. It's got to be the exception. And what's he do? He continues to get, I mean, even now, there's the last order on the court docket, September 23rd, is a motion to seal something. Granted. William Tardy, hello. Thank you for being here. If they're still putting together cases for the other perps, shouldn't they be keeping some things sealed? And confusing makes sense. I don't know, Andrew. That's a good point. A lot of people are saying it just doesn't add up anymore. The arguments that you have. Oh, what about this one? They have to protect. One of the reasons raised, and Sarah will remember this because we were talking about it many, many times, how what the prosecution, it looked like they were just cutting and pasting their motions onto new motions because it would be good cause to seal this. Number one, it would personal privacy. Number two, it might make public secret procedures of law enforcement, and then they would repeat it again. It would be 1, 2, 2, 3, and 4. It was like nobody looked at it close enough to realize, guys, either you're making this mistake over and over again, or you're cutting and pasting from before. And what about those great interviewing techniques? Now that we're seeing how they're interviewing people, what's everyone's First Amendment, freedom of speech opinions on interviews that you've seen so far? I'll give you mine right. I think that they left a lot to be desired. I think that they went in maybe with outcome oriented, because when you have, and not saying anything about anyone's guilt or innocence, I don't know. The person, one person stood up in open court. He said he was guilty. We don't know about anybody else. We're not making any allegations. But ladies and gentlemen, when you have a person in front of you who's told you they were in a relationship with one of the victims who's in that house for, 5 years? They just broke up. They just saw each other within hours of the crimes. There's a phone full of texts and missed call, and one saying, hey, come on over, and you live right around the corner. If you let's speculate here for a minute. If that was law enforcement in Chicago, if that was law enforcement in Mobile, Alabama, if that was law enforcement in Boston, do you think they would have sat down as, let me talk to whoever, your mother, on the phone? They would have looked at that person like a person of interest right away and questioned that person like that. So the interviewing techniques, I don't know. And let's not even get into the fact that they're supposedly seeing a sheath on a bed with two of the victims, and it laid there until the next morning, the morning of the 14th, and it was given to Moscow PD. It went who knows where, and then it didn't even make its way to Meridian until the 16th. Are you kidding me? First 48 hours, trail starts getting cold, right? Why wasn't that sheath taken immediately? No one's seen it. I'm not an expert on K-bar sheath, but what I understand, there's all different versions of it. If there was one that was ordered when Mr. Kohberger lived in Pennsylvania, show us a picture of it. Show the receipts. Show a picture of what you found on the bed. Show a picture of it, what it looked like when it was at the Moscow Police Department. Show a photograph of it when it left the Moscow Police Department. Show a photograph of it when it arrived at the Moscow Police Department. That's what we want to see. That's evidence. Okay. Amy's throwing off the firecrackers. Hi, USC Kiwa. Thank you. Glad to see you. Sarah, yeah, exactly. Sarah's agreeing. Tina's opinion. Oh, John Abney is saying Barney Fife interviews. What do you mean, John? Tina's saying the interviews were a joke. Clearly, they already decided it was someone outside of the house before they even investigated. Do you remember that first, the bulletins that start coming out? Oh, it's a targeted attack. No, it's not a targeted attack. The house was a target. No, a person was. They couldn't even get their story straight. They tried to insinuate they bought Dickie's clothing when the receipt showed it was like a $12 beanie. Hey, Dago, how are you? Thank you for all you're doing. Independent journalist, keeping the conversation going. I appreciate it. Hey, and here we go. That on point, Rican, always here. Thank you. Thank you for being here. You know, Judge Hippler has an issue with podcasters on YouTube and everywhere else. Guess what? It wasn't the independent journalists like I regard Dago. I regard that on point, Rican. I regard people that take the time and the effort to keep this case going on YouTube channels. It was the mass media who leaked all of that, who got all that information from we don't even know here where, and published it right back in May, right before they were getting ready. It wasn't any of us, it was them. But just hi from the Philippines. Wow, so glad that you're here. So glad that you're here. Okay, Keystone USA Kiwi is calling them the Keystone Cops and Keystone like beer. Good morning, William. Glad to see everyone here. Okay, so what we're doing now is I'm very happy to see that the independent journalists across the board, whatever side they're on, if they believe that Mr. Kohberger was the sole and the correct defendant, that's their opinion. If they believe that Mr. Kohberger was railroaded, that's their opinion, anywhere in between. But what they're doing that I think is extremely important, especially right now, keeping the heat on, showing that people are interested in the case. Because once you start seeing people like Dago not covering this case anymore, or that on point Rican, or some of the other podcasters, guess what? They're going to start thinking that you guys have lost interest. So please support them. Keep talking. People they've asked me, what can we do? What can we do? What you can do is keep the conversation going. And don't listen to me. Listen to the founding framers of the Constitution and the 12 original colonies / states. You know, when we talk about, I start all of my podcasts with the First Amendment, and it tells us that Congress shall make no law. You can't abridge. Of course, you can't defame. There's not all speech that's protected, but they gave us 5 freedoms, and it's before everything else. And that is freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to assemble peacefully, and freedom to petition government, which is what we're kind of doing, even though it's not formally. You know, people have said, well, I want the government to do something about this, to get this case unsealed. Well, hopefully, if there's a bright, smart attorney in Idaho that could maybe make that argument to petition government under the First Amendment to open up this case, maybe that's how we do. But in the meantime, all of you are you're all getting red stars. You're all getting gold stars because you're talking about the case. You're talking with each other. You're supporting the independent journalists because the mass media have completely dropped the ball. Oh, wait a second, though. If they got defamed, they'd run right away to the First Amendment for cover. You know what I mean? But we got to protect this privilege, how important it is. Congress shall make no law to abridge or to deprive us all from speech and press. That's 2 of the 5 freedoms right there. And my position is the press has not been able to report this case because, number one, the case has largely been under seal. And the hearings have been under seal. And it's been 3 months since he pled guilty, and it doesn't seem to be any rush to unseal this case. And you guys have not been able to freely converse, to have discussions about the case because it's under seal. And it's still under seal. Has anyone read the Declaration? And let's give her a round of support. Rebecca Boone of the Associated Press. Did anyone read her declaration yet? We need to keep the case hot. There goes Dago in capital letters. Yes, sir. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Rebecca Boone. She is a member of the Media Coalition. When the Media Coalition re-entered this case in July with the purpose of doing 2 things, to get that gag order set aside, which they were successful at, and to get the case unsealed, which they were not successful at, unfortunately. Rebecca Boone, in support of the motion and the memorandum of, okay, what's a motion is just, it's an application for a court order. It's because the attorney for the media couldn't call up Judge Hippler and say, "Hi, Judge Stephen J. Hippler, I'd like you to set aside this gag order." No, can't do that. You have to file a motion so that everybody's on notice. Everyone has a right to be heard. There's no ex parte communications between one side and the judge going on. And so they came in, but then they had to produce evidence and support, like a declaration. Now, you've seen declarations in this case. You've seen declarations in this case, right? One that I know you're very, very much. Christina, thank you. Yeah, please hit the like. Please hit the like. You've seen, it's called an affidavit of probable cause. It's really not. It's a declaration. It's the declaration of Brett Payne. You know why? Because there's no notary public at the end. He wasn't sworn under oath in front of a notary public, but a declaration is just as effective for what you need to do. So what Rebecca Boone did, AP journalist, 25 years experience. She started out with the Lewiston newspapers, then she got promoted. She got another job with the Associated Press. Associated Press, national, international, long-term organization of respected journalists. She's been with them for 25 years. I'm sure Hippler must have loved seeing this declaration coming aboard. Please read it. Please read it. And if you subscribe to her, whatever, give her a thank you for what she did. She wrote in there, she said, "I've covered cases for the Associated Press here in Idaho, and criminal cases. I've covered the judiciary. Never have I seen so many orders to seal documents but this case. They called it a secret case. They said, Judge Hippler, look, he's pled guilty. He's waived his appellate rights. The allegation that this still needs to be under seal to protect him right to it. You canceled the jury trial on July 3rd, July 2nd. Unseal these documents. Okay. So that's July 14th when her declaration was filed. Please read it because she goes into the First Amendment and how this is preventing the press from doing their job and from all of us from being able to speak about the case. I want to hear what you guys think. Chatty Chick, I reside in Boise. This case is shameful. Never been so ashamed in my life. Chatty Chick, have you heard of Rebecca Boone? Because she's AP, she's based out of Boise. I wish every journalist were like her. We're like her because she's not out there trying to get interviews with some of these journalists. I mean, the way that they talk, they are so much on the side of the press and the media, and they're, congratulating them. That's not how it works. The press is supposed to be almost like butting heads with law enforcement in order to make sure that the public understands what's going on. Don't go in there and congratulate them what a job they well did was. It's not your job. You're not a fan. You're supposed to be a member of the press, protecting the First Amendment, doing your job, making sure that the people can speak. You're supposed to be the eyes and ears of the people because not everybody could travel to Boise or to Moscow when it was in Moscow. Can't go to Boise now and petition to try to get the records. Can't go to the clerk's office. You call them or you email. They don't never get back to you. That's been hey, Leslie and Billy in the house. Phenomenon. Glad to see you here. Rainbow Rebecca, some of my very, very, very long-term supporters. Independent journalist Dago coming in with that's exactly correct. Thank you again, Kathy. Thank you, everyone. So, okay, so you're William. Okay, people are driving. Who's driving? Oh, Leslie and Billy. Yeah, please don't read anything right now. Focus on what you're doing. But please listen to us while you can, as long as you're taking, you know what you need to do, not to take the focus off the road. But in any event, I just wanted to read a little bit to you, if I could, from today's podcast presentation, because I'm not going to read it. It's too boring to read it. Thank you, Phenomenon. Wouldn't be anywhere here without my supporters. I'm telling you, because sometimes I sit here up at 2 o'clock or 3. Oh my gosh, I gotta put something like this on the podcast. I've got, I think, 850 episodes. Probably about half of them are, another motion to seal from the public. I've never seen any. I mean, I went on and on. People are like, why are you complaining so much about this case? No, it's not Sarah Kiwi USA. No, I don't think any relation. And then they get into the case and they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I know why because our First Amendment's at risk here. Do we really? Yes, William, we will. We will absolutely keep fighting for our first. I'll keep publishing. If one person reads it, that's good enough for me. And then maybe it'll spark a conversation across the desk or over coffee with a friend or a neighbor or a family member. That's what my mission is. I let, the other podcasters like Dago, like, so many of them, so many of J-Rod, who's here, so many of you guys, you discuss the evidence, you open up the forum, you give people, it's almost like you got the neighborhood coffee shop that they might have had if this was 40 years ago or 50 years ago, where people would gather and speak about current events, speak about cases, speak about true crime. And you guys are basically, that's what you're doing. You're doing it virtually. So you're reaching a lot more people. Hopefully some of the content that I give, please use it. I don't even care if you cry. We got to keep this thing going. We have got to. Our constant. Imagine now, this is such a high profile case, right? Do we not believe that other prosecutions, other defenses are not going to cite to Idaho versus Kohberger and suggest? Could you imagine? You should be able to walk into any courtroom in this country at any time and watch not just the trial, but the pretrial proceedings. You should be able to go into any clerk's office, any courtroom across the country and say, let me see the pleadings from this case. Oh, it's online? Okay, let me go look at it online. But we can't. We still can't discuss the case. I want to ask you guys a question. I want to ask a guy. I will try to get Outcast. Outcast is doing a great job. Who's that? The new kid on the block that's publishing all of the videos, that's keeping the conversation going. Very good. Leslie and Billy, I'm talking about. I think you're a moderator for Outcast. You may have even shown me that it was Outcast and it was another podcaster that's putting out. Connor. Yeah, William, that's right. Connor. That he's putting out. He's getting the goods and he's sharing it with everybody. So Outcast and Connor, kudos very much. I would say I'd put them on the original colonies, the constituted people, fighting for our government and our democracy. That's what they're doing. We are all mods. Hey, Christina, very good. Sarah's doing her job too. Sarah will keep her eye on the docket. She demands to see the pleading. She demands to see the evidence. And the little bit that's been released, she shares with everybody, right? Right, Sarah? Even though you don't have, I wish you would establish some sort of a presence, like a YouTube channel or wherever else, because you're doing a lot online to share the documents and to keep the conversation going. Reap 13, first live. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So anyway, I want to ask you guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you could have one piece of evidence, I was going to say 3, let's limit it to 1. One piece of evidence disclosed today, no questions asked, no sealing, and it could be physical evidence, it could be receipts, it could be any part of discovery. What would you like to see? Musical contestant in the house. Thank you for joining us. Nadia. Cy Ray, Phenomenon. Well, Phenomenon, the reply brief regarding the Cy Ray discovery is one of the documents that's up for unsealing right now. From, what was it, July? No. It was the May and June, the May and April batch. It's the second batch that Hitler's looking at right now. It's the reply brief. Okay. We know what a reply is, right? Motion, that's the starting, that's the motion. Application for a court order. Then the other side has due process right to be heard. That's where you see response, usually in opposition. And then the reply, that's the third document in the batch. So right now, because Judge Hitler is going backwards, he's hitting the end of discovery. We're going to start seeing the motions in limine coming up next, which will be very exciting to me. So he wants to see Cy-Ray's evidence regarding what? The 8458 phone? Because sometimes Detective Brett Payne called it the 8548 phone. He's called it the 8458 and the 8548 phone. He's also called Mr. Kohberger at time, Mr. Kohberger. I was Mr. Kohberg, Koberg. And I said, are you asking for a warrant for the right person? And he's, saying that Maddie and Kaylee were at the corner club at 1:30, but they were also at the grub truck at 1:30. I mean, these were things, because when I went through the affidavit of probable cause for the podcast, do it old school to give you an idea of my age, sat there with a ruler, a pencil, and a highlighter, went through that thing line by line, as I know, Sarah, you have done as well. And many people have done this as well. J-Rod jumping in. That's on my wish list. J-Rod, you stole my wish list. We need proof of the sheath at the crime scene. J-Rod jumped in before I even had an opportunity to say that. I'm going to vote with J-Rod. Yes, the one piece of evidence I want to see is the sheath. Here we go. Richard's Art, long-term member, long-term, couldn't support me more in my mission. Aloha from Hawaii. Yes, this case is the biggest in social media history as well. Oh, let's not even talk about the DNA. We want to start a conversation about IgG DNA. Do we really want to do that? The defense spent 2 years, tooth and nail, fighting for IgG DNA. And then what happens? In limine time comes, motion in limine, motion application for a court order in limine, a ruling before trial. So they came forward and said, never mind. We're not going to do anything with IgG. We're like, what? Oh, yeah. Okay. So then came the infamous homework assignment where Judge Hippler assigned the state and the defense. You guys come up with a jury instruction as to how Mr. Kohberger came on your radar, whether it was December 19th, right? That's the official story. That's the first time they heard of him. They didn't know about him, according to Detective Brett Payne. You come up with a jury instruction as to what we're going to tell these people in the box that are going to have the ultimate decision as to whether or not capital punishment, if there's a conviction, gets applied here. That's another thing that's up on for discussion. I want to see that jury instruction. I want to see what the two of them came up with to talk. Because you imagine you're sitting on this case. You're sitting in the jury because guess what? People like you guys here in chat, you're exactly who would be on that jury panel. Not judges, not lawyers, not that they fight to get off of it. I shouldn't say generally speaking. I'm just giving a speculation, but it's people that are drivers, that are teachers, that are homemakers, that work in retail. That's who sits on juries, right? Now you're sitting in that jury box, and then Payne is on the stand, and he's got to give some type of we learned about Mr. Kohberger because whatever this jury instruction says, I want to see that jury instruction. They assessed all databases without a warrant. Christina's raising the issue again. Yep, accessed the databases. Jules sent in a FOIA regarding the sheath, but keeps getting knocked back. Why the silence? Yeah, Jules has been doing a lot of good work trying to get the FOIA request, as many of the independents are. Why wouldn't Hitty Guy say, gonna gotcha for this, right? Why the strange conversations outside of that food truck? William Tardy, no offense, but if it were my family members involved on the other side, I'd rather be kept from the public, even though I'm very curious on this case. Love Jules. I feel the jury would have had the same issues. People have said, I've discussed this case, and people have said to me, I've been on a jury, and if they told me don't look behind the door, I'd want to know what's behind that door. It's human nature, right? Isn't it human nature? Okay. What else would people want to see? The sheath has already been put on the wish list. What else would you guys like to see? Today, no questions asked. Judge Hippler is going to release one piece of evidence to the public. Is everybody pretty much? I think it's the sheath. And it would be the testimony regarding the phone. IGG, Reigning Rebecca wants to see the IGG. How about Reigning Rebecca? This calls for a conversation regarding how it was. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. KP. BK's police interrogation. We'll get back to the IGG issue in a second. This is one that's also on my wish list. Adam's interviews coming up. A lot of the interviews. Wouldn't everyone like to see that interview of Mr. Kohberger from Pennsylvania? He was interrogated for 45 minutes, right? He was taken from his family home, put under arrest. They didn't go directly to the Monroe County Jail. He was taken. There was a little side stop, walks into the barracks of the Pennsylvania State Police. And who's there? Detective Brett Payne. And what does he say? According to Detective Brett Payne, Mr. Kohberger said something to the effect of, "You look familiar." And then he's talking about all the work that he did as a graduate student for law enforcement in the area. I want to see that interrogation. I don't want to hear anymore what Payne says that interrogation video says, because when we start seeing the videos, we're not seeing certain things. Like, has anyone seen? Okay, I want to ask you guys a question. Proof of the burglary charge. That's a good one, Betty. That's a good one. Body cam from his arrest. Oh, Christina, unfortunately, no body cam from his arrest, supposedly there. Yeah, Tina's saying she wants to be able to see body language. So important. Body language of who, Tina? Mr. Kohberger or Detective Brett Payne? Because both would be on that video, supposedly. Body cam. Okay. His name was Little Brother. Truth. I want to see everything. Everything. He wants everything to be seen. This case, I'm deeply concerned about it, which is why I'm continuing to remain involved. Because if this case gets to be a precedent, we can pretty much say goodbye to the First Amendment as it relates to freedom of speech and press for criminal cases. And that's one of the main reasons the First Amendment exists. Okay, Nikki's saying 2:52 a.m. footage. Nikki, I want you to explain why it is that the 2:52 a.m. footage is so important to you. As we go back to, have you guys, who here has seen all of the body cam from the first responders at 1122 King Road, or part of it at least by now? Thank you, William. Appreciate your interest. You guys have seen it, right? You've seen the body cam of, yep, Nadia saying me. She has seen the body cam. Betty has seen the body cam. So you see, who's the first one who arrived? It was Nunez, correct? First year police officer, a rookie, being sent out, which was called in for an unconscious person. He's thinking he's going out for a medical emergency and walks into this house, right? And then who was second? Was it Warner or was it not Warner? Right? And then I believe it was Gunderson. Gunderson was 3. And then 4, Snyder. And then 5, Smith. Those are the 5, right? So far, everyone but Smith's. Has anyone seen any of Smith's body cam yet? We've seen him. Like, it's very interesting to me from a research perspective to have read Warner's report, which he wrote on November 13th, and then to see on body cam when he's in the kitchen speaking with Smith, to see that conversation with video and be able to hear it after reading it probably about 10 times since it was released is very eye-opening. The weird one acting. Oh, okay. So love Tina would like to see Gunderson. That's that one. Warner, I found it very interesting. Warner is he's basically on Nunez's heels, right? He's got his body cam on from the minute he's leaving the Moscow Police Department, the station, right? I found that very interesting. Hi, Jilly Bean. Thank you for being here. Christina, Richard, many members of our channel are here. I appreciate it. Tina. He's the only one of the four that we've seen so far. What Outcast played? Nadia, did Outcast, has he gotten a hold of the Corbin Smith body cam? Please, someone let me know if that's true. Okay, no, Miss Pottage. First off, thank you for being here, long-term supporter. No, we're not going to delete this one because of the First Amendment issue. But Warner is standing outside of 1122, standing basically in the doorway, and he's interviewing HJ, right? He took some photographs, did he not? Go back and take a look at that, but I've looked at it 3 times, so I had to confirm it because there was nothing in his report saying that he took photographs. He asked to see his hands. I think he may have asked to see under his shirt. Don't quote me on that one, but in his report, why weren't those photos entered into evidence? You took it a couple of minutes after you arrived on scene. You must have thought it was important. And then he's talking to that situation with Corbin Smith a little bit later on. That sounds like that was evidence. Why wasn't that entered into evidence in his report that day? Or why didn't he mention? And here's another thing. You're walking in as law enforcement. You got to know. Yeah, this is a mass unaliving, but it's not, unfortunately, the ones that we see. It's all too often here in the United States at schools and churches where there's another weapon that's used, that had to have known or thought of what caused some of those wounds. And you're walking in and somebody's walking around with a knife, and then it's put on the table. And did it get moved from that table? Just a lot of things. Why the discrepancy in which room was Bethany? Fremont, I wouldn't. He definitely asked about the hand, so William's confirming that he did. Not a word. William, take a look at his report, Officer Warner. It's at the very beginning of the MPD released reports from the city of Moscow back in July. Not a word of that. Photographs. Where are those photographs that he took that first day? I mean, minutes after on scene. And then just the casual. Yeah, his hands on the head. Check it out, guys. Corbin, so I just remembered I knew a guy with the name in Honolulu. I knew a guy by the name of Corbin Smith because I read about him in the affidavit of probable cause, first paragraph. Corbin Smith, a.k.a. Escort to Detective Brett Payne. That's who you're now seeing on the body cam. The airport. I don't know. Yeah, the Rebs 13 is, I don't know. To get into the head of Detective Payne, I don't know. I don't know. It was moved. It looked like it was moved. Is there a possibility that the sheath might have been moved? Just throwing this out as a rhetorical question. Maybe people just weren't sure because this is the first time that they ever had anything like this. You might see it a lot more. Hi, WB. You can catch me on repeat. You can catch me on repeat. Hit the like. Leave your DNA here, though, WB. WB is one of my strongest supporters. He comments on all videos. He keeps legendary. Glad to be you're here. It's real important to comment on my videos, Dago's videos, everyone else's videos, because that keeps the conversation going. And that shows that there's interest to YouTube. So anyway, getting back to those conversations, it was definitely moved, Nadia. Thank you, WB. Thank you, WB, for liking the channel. I appreciate it. So maybe the reason why the sheath wasn't seen initially, it was later seen. Remember the quote from the PCA that got people all, what? It was later seen from the door. It was on the bed. Why wasn't it initially? And why didn't all the first responders see it that went in there? We got to see those. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see. I don't want to see the victims. I have no intention of, I don't want to look at that. I want to see the sheath. That's it. I just want to see the sheath. Rainey Rebecca saying there were 2 weapons. They said what happened to Kaylee's face wasn't from, yeah, okay, 2. And what about the firecrackers down on the first floor? Who ever heard of that nefarious activity until documents started to become unsealed? What if you would have known about that when the case was progressing? That BF said that she was awoken because she saw not just the sound of fireworks, but a light coming through her door. And look at where her door is. Her door does not face the front door. It is to the side of the front door, and it is down a long hallway with the steps in between. Imagine if you would have heard that. Imagine if you would have heard that back when this case was still progressing. That would have sparked a lot of interest and discussion. Yeah. It was moved. It was moved to bring anything to a crime scene. Yeah, like a leash. Yeah. Betty Fremont, my friend. Okay, no firecracker sound on the 1112 video. I'd like to see the victim, see how bad we relied about Kaylee's face wasn't mentioned in the autopsy. Okay, one says PC. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of inconsistencies. And that's why it's real important. I recommend also, when you're looking at the videos themselves, the body cam videos, pull down the first responders' reports and read them. Read them and look at how consistent. So far, there's only one person of the 5. I haven't seen Corbin Smith's yet, but the one who seemed he was the hardest working also seemed that his report was as close to what he did. And that's Snyder, Corporal Snyder. I mean, he got there. He seemed all business. He got there. One minute he's putting the crime scene tape around. Next minute he's in the back. He's talking to Smith. They're taking photographs. He's going upstairs. Gunderson's following him every step. You see him taking the pictures from his phone. You see the sort of phone he used. Then you see him up on the 1112 steps, speaking with the students there, arranging to get the camera during his canvassing. He's very easy to find because he's the K-9 cop. So the back of his clothing says K-9. His believed friend, very good channel. So yeah, absolutely. Yes. Back to meetings. Thank for everybody. So anyway, how come through that Detective Barrett was in charge of the, I don't know. We can't answer those kind of questions, unfortunately, J-Rod, until the evidence gets unsealed. Do you know the last date that anything was put on the public docket, anything was unsealed? It was the documents from July and June of 2025. The last thing to be unsealed was back on September 2nd and 3rd, almost a month ago. So they're just working on the first, and that first set of documents still isn't. It has not yet been completely resolved because they still have to make the decision regarding unredacting the names and certain information regarding trial witnesses, all of which were under seal in this case. You can understand them covering the rooms. That's the crime scene, but somewhere. Yeah, I mean, at some point, that whole house should have been cordoned off. They shouldn't. I mean, people were walking in, walking out, walking up steps, coming down steps. I'm not an expert in this field, but from what I've read, every time you go into a crime scene, even if you don't mean to, you're dropping DNA, you're dropping hair, you're dropping sweat, And Gunderson was coughing a lot. Maybe phlegm, maybe fingerprints. And you're taking evidence with you. That crime scene, in my opinion, should have been, once they saw you got 4 bodies in there and you've called the Idaho State Police to come in and to process the crime scene. They made that call at 12:22. That whole house should have been cordoned off. That whole house should have been cordoned off. I don't know why he's taking the dog out. It should have been left the way they found it. They're removing, they removed the dog. Like you said, got a leash from outside, put the leash on the dog, decided the dog needed to leave. So just a lot, nothing. Okay. Richard, all the way from Hawaii, nothing truly adds up. Aloha, my friend. Hi, Capelli, South Louisiana. Glad that you're here. Glad that you're here. So anyway, my concern about the case, we're now 3 months almost to the day that he pled guilty. This case still remains largely under seal. Please watch our new content today. It's only, I think, less than 10 minutes, 9 minutes and 50 seconds, something like that. It points you to that declaration from that journalist, and she's spot on as far as I'm concerned, outlining the First Amendment related issues, why it is that she just basically said that the orders to seal skyrocketed in 2025. Hitler must have been thrilled to see that, because that was under Hitler's watch. And she just basically, they called it, just a shroud of secrecy, everything that we've been talking about. So please, if you could watch that video, comment, keep the conversation going. Take a look at that declaration. I had to read it I think 3 times before it really started to gel in my mind, all of the different points that she was referring to. And keep focusing on the case. Keep talking about the case. Keep supporting the podcasters that are talking about the case, because guess what? Mass media, they're not reporting about the First Amendment related issues here. It's down to the independents, the people that have 10, 20, 80,000, drop in the bucket to what these large podcasters have. None of this matters. Why BCK pled guilty? That's what we shout out. Everything else is noise. Right. Richard, do you feel that what's being released now may be a red herring as to what was the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the sole and the correct defendant? That's what people want. That's what my followers on my podcast for the past 2 years have been asking for. And also here, since we've been on YouTube for about 8 months, have been asking for. And what I want to know, where's the evidence? There used to be an old fast food, where's the beef? Show me the money. Where's the money? Show it to me. I don't want to hear anymore what Ann Taylor, thinks the evidence is, or what Bill Thompson thinks the evidence is, or what Chief Fry thinks the evidence is. I want to see the evidence. The American public and really across the globe that's been interested in this case. We're not going shouldn't have to sit here until they get through it, however long it's going to take. Because right now, it's going to take 2 years at this point. Oh, Watcher, thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you for being you. I appreciate it. Where's the B? WB, how? Now, okay, I'm probably a lot older than almost everybody in the room here. Okay, Christina, enjoy your grocery shopping. Enjoy. Thank you for being here. That is a very famous, for those of you that are, younger in age than yours truly. That's a famous commercial from the 1980s. You might want to watch it on YouTube and then think about this case. Judge Hitler, where's the beef? Where's the evidence? Where's the filings? Unseal the case. That's it. Oh, Betty, bringing up a good point. What about the shoe prints? Hey, ISP went to the jail. I think it was January 5th, the day he got back from Pennsylvania, made his appearance in court. They took all sorts of samples. The buccal swabs, they took fingerprints. Why didn't they take his shoe print? Right there. Hey, those shoe prints in the back, that caught the attention of quite a few first responders. Not just one, but multiple. Whose shoe prints were they leading to the back? What about the latent print inside, the shoe print inside? Are we supposed to stop talking about that? That was in the affidavit of probable cause. There was a latent print. It took the ISP twice or 3 times to find it, but they finally did. It was the Vans-like shoe print, right inside in the kitchen, outside of the bedroom belonging to DM, going towards the back door, supposedly the point of entry and point of leaving. And we're just going to drop that. Whose shoe print was that? William Tardy saying he loves that commercial. It played a long, long time. It played a long, long time. Leslie and Billy are here today. They are saying that they remember those commercials very well. The DNA on the handrail. Yes. Oh, and what about this? Are we supposed to not take notice that the lead detective for the Idaho State Police said that he saw some red stuff? Not 1 to 2, not the railway 1 to 2, the railway from 2 to 3. And in fact, you know those steps turn? There's a little landing area and then it goes up. It was the railway closest to the 3rd floor. He said this looks like, yes, red DNA. Whatever happened to that? DNA on the sheath. Randy Rebecca. My thought why Brian took the plea is who knows how Hitler would have. Yeah. Every objection. Okay. That's Rebecca. Rebecca's not alone in this opinion. Quite a few people also feel that way, that the way that Judge Hitler ruled, I thought that some of his rulings were correct. I think that the defense dropped the ball in a lot of the motions to suppress because they didn't argue standing. They needed to argue standing. They needed to say, yeah, he's got a privacy interest in that DNA because that's just not his cousin's DNA or whoever it was, supposedly. That might be his. You know, something you got to argue that they dropped those in my opinion. That's just my opinion. It doesn't mean anything. That's just my opinion. But by the same token, when he ruled the way that he did on alternate suspects, I shook my head. I said, Judge Hitler, it's even in the. I think that you might have heard me if you listened to the podcast episode. I think it was episode 657 or something like that. I could not believe what I was reading. Those footnotes, footnote 2 and 3. If Sarah's in here, she knows what I'm talking about. She knows what I'm talking about. When he said, note these 3 other alternate suspects, and I think that we can make an let's not say who they are, but I think that we probably know who they are, who 2 of them are at least. The perpetrator drove to the crime scene, according to Judge Hitler. The perpetrator, these other alternative suspects, they were in walking distance. That wasn't a judge, that was a jury question. He's the trier of the law. Is there enough here to raise an alibi defense under the statute? Which I felt that was a correct decision that he made. But whether the perpetrators were inside the house, whether the perpetrators skateboarded to the house, whether the perpetrators took a motorcycle, ran, jogged, crawled, walked, it's a jury question. Whether suspect vehicle 1 is Mr. Kohberger's car, if it's not his car, it's a jury question. But that doesn't put him in the house. Does not put him in the house. It's going back to the burglary charge question. You got to be in the house. You got to break. And you got to go into the house with the intent to commit a felony. At the sentencing hearing, or not the sentencing hearing, at the change of plea, Thompson pretty much said, I don't think that no one thinks that he intended to commit all of the crime. And I said to myself, what am I hearing? Why'd you charge him with first degree 4 times? Intent is a requirement. You got to intend. It can't be an accident. It can't be, oh, I fell and this weapon went into them and then it was, no. That might be second. That might be manslaughter. It's not first degree. First degree, you need to have it in. And so I thought maybe something would be done once that admission was made. Go back and listen to when Thompson stands up. Go back and listen to when he stands up and he says, no one thinks that he intended, words that affect all of the, I'm like, well, then that's not first degree. You should have never charged him with first degree. The only, that was the final nail, right? A lot of people, I feel that way when it came back with no, and you know what? I don't know why so early he had to be cornered regarding, I think that what it was is that one of the defense attorneys said that there are multiple, this case is filled with alternate perpetrators. Then judge said, well, then we're going to have to handle this pre-trial in limine. because they could have had a few more months to keep developing. A lot can be done. If you've got a good detective on scene that's working for you as the defense, you can find a lot of information between May, when he made that ruling, and when October rolls around, and then you raise okay, now I got the evidence. Here's the one additional thing to connect this person to the crime scene. So when he said in that paper, I could understand, maybe he got discouraged and said, I can't risk this. I'm scared. Plus, they're going to put my parents on the stand. They're going to put my family members on the stand. That might have had something to do it. Well, until we see the evidence, I'm not convinced that there was evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. We can't be told. We cannot give up our role, that we've got to make sure that the court system is working properly. It was aren't you supposed to have the right question? Yeah. Alternate part was something that was supposed to be. Yes, William. Yes, you're right. I mean, even if you read the case law, and that was a case out of Moscow, right? The case that everyone cited, that was a Moscow case. Lady is in her trailer. She's with her either significant other, boyfriend. Someone comes the back door, unalives her. Next door neighbor is an ear witness, comes over. That happened in Moscow. That is the case regarding alternate perpetrators. We did a podcast on that about 6 months ago. It was instrumental, likely an agent. Richard, we have to all hold open the possibility that there was some involvement here. Could have been an accessory before the fact, could have been an accessory after the fact, could have been the sole perpetrator, could be innocent completely and a scapegoat. All bets are not off until we see the evidence as the public. And the more that there's a lack of transparency, the more your radar's got to be going up and saying, why? Why didn't they? Okay. The monster is now in the penitentiary, and I'm going to show you why he is. This is why. This is why. Multiple people don't, but no one heard a thing. Yeah, phenomenon. And then people who have been to Moscow have said just how tight and compact that area is. Like sometimes, look at J-Rod and Kathy, thank you. Sometimes it looked a lot more spread apart, and you could say, okay, well, yeah, okay, I could understand that maybe people, but it's like they're literally right there. They're having, when they're walking, when you can really appreciate how close it is. When you see Snyder, for example, walking in the back, the house is right there. Not 11, 12, the one next to it. And then next to it, steps away. And don't they back up to some sort of a hill or something? So you got that canyon effect. Oh, Charm Free, she is here. Or he's here. Thank you. You're here today. Charm Free wrote a comment, was concerned that we didn't have a live last night because I have to do a little bit more work on that presentation, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here and giving your First Amendment-based freedom of speech, thoughts, opinions, comments, keeping the conversation going. 3 lots is cul-de-sac, as phenomenon is saying. The pack mentality is real. I heard one person say, I heard his voice. He did it. You know what? If you look at the PCA, go back to it. Go back to the PCA. DM never identified Mr. Kohberger. She never, I don't even think that she said bushy eyebrows at all. I didn't hear her say anything about that when she's speaking to Nunez. It was Detective Payne who looked at Mr. Kohberger's driver's license and said, he's got bushy eyebrows. Okay, well, we're going to use his drive. I was like, dude, were you there? What bushy eyebrows means to one person, which she never said it, is different from someone else. Mr. Tardy, thank you so much for your kindness. I appreciate it. So, DNA on the handrail, Kelly. Girl's asking questions. She wants to know about the DNA on the handrail. The unidentified until we see that sheath. Okay, I want to see it. What's the wish list for the sheath? Ah, Lily is here, one of my strongest and longest supporters, all the way across the pond. DM said she didn't recognize him from his photo after. That's right, when he was arrested. December 30th, they showed, and she could not identify him. This is your star witness. She could not identify him. How does he get placed in the house? It's the sheath. And even if you say, oh, there's not enough DNA, it was compromised. All true, and good comments, and keep the conversations going. But we've never seen this sheath. We got to see, I think, as a minimum, as a public, and this is just my opinion. Let me know how you guys feel. Evidence that it was on the bed when Nunez and Warner were there. They were the first two. They were within minutes of each other. Photographs that Corporal Snyder took, 15 of them he took in MM's room. He made a comment about lividity. That's how close he got to that bed. None of his photographs mention a sheath. I expected to see somebody took photographs when they went in there, even if it's on the phone, even if it's not a great camera. I would have expected 10, 12, 15, 20 photographs, sheath from the right, sheath from the left, sheath from above, sheath from underneath, sheath from this angle, sheath from that angle, sheath 10 feet away, sheath 2 feet up to front. Nothing. None of those first responders mentioned that sheath. I want to see the sheath. That's the only, I don't even care about what ISP took later. I want to see what the MPD first responders saw. The MPD first responders were in that room before ISP was even called. That's what matters. And then want to see it after the students were removed. We understand from the reports that were released that Mabbitt goes in with Thompson somewhere around 8 o'clock at night, removes the students. Then I want to see a photograph of the sheath. Then I'm going to see a photograph of the sheath when ISP left before 12 midnight. I want to see a photograph of the sheath when it's taken off the bed and turned over to Corporal Payne. I want to know what Payne did with the sheath afterwards. I want to know what that sheath looked like at the MPD. Where was it stored? Who had access to it? I want to see, this is basically the chain of custody. See a photograph of it when the ISP came to pick it up on the 16th. I'm going to see a photograph of it when ISP number 1 turns it over to ISP number 2, because it's a 6.5 hour drive, and he can't possibly be asked to make the entire drive. This is just the most important evidence in the case. I'm just giving my opinion here. So it's turned over, and this is a corporal he's turning it over, like very, very high ranking, not a corporal, at the very, very high levels of the ISP. So I want to know if he drove it or if he gave it, if he delegated it. I want to see it every step of the way. I want to see it when it got to the ISP. I want to see a photograph of how the ISP marked it into evidence. And then I want to see video of whoever conducted the testing as real time. I don't want to hear that this wasn't videotaped. I want to see when they start the extractions and they extract the single source. I want to see that all on video. And then I want to see how the single source profile was stored at the ISP. I want to see when Blacker shows up around the 22nd or so, it was right around Thanksgiving, to pick it up. I want to see when it's released to him. I want to see every moment of the time from when he leaves the ISP in Meridian, gets on the plane, presumably there in Boise, travels to Houston, gets off the plane. I want to see that bag. He said he had it in a backpack. I want to see it go through. I want to know what type of x-ray system it went to. Could it possibly been damaged at that point? I want to see it when Blacker picks it up. He said it was with him at all times, right? I just want to see that. I'm not asking for a lot. This is the key piece of evidence. This is it. That's the only thing that could arguably put him in the house. That's it. William Tardy, chain of custody. You are 1000% correct. That is exactly what that is. And it is the most precious piece of evidence that they had. And they treated it, in my opinion, so casually, to let it sit there on that bed, knowing that they are already 12 hours behind The perpetrator or perpetrators, as Chief Fry called them, possibly, when they were looking for SV1, they already had a 12-hour head start. Okay, so subtract that from the first 48 hours. Now we're down to 36. Then you add a couple more days. We're past the 48 hours. Now we're into the negative hours. -1 past 48, -2, 3, 4, 5, before it even gets to ISP. And who knows when the testing happened. Did the testing happen late Thursday? Because that chief didn't get there early Thursday. I'm sorry, early on the 16th. I'm not sure what day of the week. That might have been a Wednesday. Because the transporter, the chauffeur from the ISP, says that he went to the Moscow Police Department. It was handed to him then. And then he had to drive a couple of hours. So it's probably late morning by the time it gets to the handoff. And then it's got to make the rest of the trip another 4 hours or so. So you're well into the afternoon by that time, before it even gets to Meridian. As casual as it might not have been tested until the 17th. Might not have been tested until the 17th. So now we are so many hours behind before that sheath is even tested. What's that, Richard? Payne is actually the only person with any contact with Brian. And that didn't even happen in Idaho or Washington State, right? That was across the country in Pennsylvania. Touch DNA, musical Contessa, touch DNA matches no one. Not ever, 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 ever. Expedited, result-oriented investigation. The Watcher's saying here, this was an expedited, result-oriented. We saw from the beginning. Watcher, I can't say you're wrong. I can't say you're wrong from the first minute of the investigation when they were 12 hours behind already, because they were only called and they only arrived there at 12, right? Maybe not 12, 8 hours. I'm sorry. They were 8 hours behind. And just how they got, get the people down to the police station. They're talking, one's hearing the other. You're supposed to separate them. See any of that? They made sure there's a trail. So the Watcher saying this was an expedited, result-oriented investigation and prosecution. Who wields so much power? They can command Google to take down maps. Photography, was it lagging? Yeah, I doubt it. Results-oriented. Okay, usually the guideline is you go where the evidence takes you. You start at point A, B, C, D, E. Oh, okay, you were thinking you were going to go straight in a line, but the evidence is telling you got to make a right. You got to make a right. You don't keep going straight in a line. And you go, we're seeing how quickly we got a little bit of a hint that this was results oriented in a certain way, as the Watcher is saying today, because so many people were cleared so quickly and they were the inner circle. That anyone else, Chicago, Louisiana, New York, any other law enforcement in the world, whoever is closest to the victims, access. You rule them out. You assume, as hard as that is, the people with access, and then you work your way out, because usually there's an old saying, and I think statistics prove this, that when there's an unaliving, it's usually by someone who knew the victim. It's rarely a stranger upon. Not to say it doesn't happen. It happens a lot. But usually, and that's why they look at everyone close by. White vehicle was a suspect because two ladies asked questions at the first What do we know about a white vehicle? Yes. And what about initially the very, 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 very early reports? It wasn't even a Hyundai. It was another type of, and it's the type of car is eluding me right now. Cops were having coffee with them. Well, yes. William, what about, he starts the interrogation. Lily, as a member, thank you. Lily, I'm so glad that you've become a member. Happy to have you aboard. Nissan, there's Nadia. It was a Nissan originally, right? Nissan originally. Nissan is what they were looking for originally. And there's a lot of white Elantras in that neighborhood. Okay, they've got some video. Have you guys seen the video of the car? And I think that I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because I think these are red herrings. I really do. To take our focus off the First Amendment, important related issues. How many white Elantras are in the area of Washington and Idaho? Quite a few from what the statistics show. Sentra. J-Rod's thinking it's a Sentra. It's not even an Elantra. So 50,000. Nadia's coming up with the statistics. I think I heard that. 50,000 white Elantras. Remember, people were they were calling in tips, their neighbors, their boyfriends. They said, hey, if somebody drives in this type of a car and it's in their garage for a while, come forward, come forward. KREM News is what Rev 13 is sourcing it to. KREM2 News, and that's from the West Coast, from the area. They made narrative Brian fled the state. Yeah, he did not. Hey, William, welcome. Glad that you're a member of our channel. Welcome. He did not. He did what a lot of people did. A lot of people, you're a student, especially if you're across the country, by the way, with autism, 2,500 miles away and schools closing down. Where do you go? Very few students stay on campus. Some do. If they don't have family or if they don't celebrate Christmas, they'll stay home. They'll stay at the, oh my gosh, William is so generous. Thank you. And now we have Capelli, Rochelle, Kitty, Zanata. Welcome everyone. Cheeseburger. Thank you. Let's to William Tandy for your generosity. Yes. So we've had someone fled the scene. No, he didn't. He did what probably 90% of students do during break is you go home for a couple of weeks. You go home, you spend New Year's, you spend Hanukkah, you spend Christmas, whatever, or if you don't celebrate you just go home anyway, winter break. That's what he did. There was no warrant for his arrest and he leaves the state. He happened to be with his family. And when they arrested him, it wasn't because he did anything wrong in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It was because of what happened. Four documents from the 29th of December sealed his fate. It was the criminal complaint based on the PCA that was signed by Thompson. It was the order finding probable cause based on PCA signed by Judge Marshall. And it was the warrant for Mr. Kohberger's arrest, no bail, signed by Judge Marshall. Those are the four documents. Of all of them, the PCA is the most important because without the PCA, there would be no criminal complaint. There would have been no order showing probable cause, and there would have been no warrant. So it has now been, that PCA was signed December 29th, 2022. It is today, October 1st, 2025. Where's the evidence? We're going to go ahead. We're going to have to, William, I'm going to have to quote her again. I forget what was her name, Martha. We have to quote her again. Where's the beef? Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence, everyone? Hi, Kathy. Kathy is here. Thank you, Kathy, a very long-term supporter. Very happy for you to be here. I want to give to Ms. Pottage. Ms. Pottage, I want to ask you a question because I know you've been following the case. Have you had an opportunity to watch any of the body cam footage? Has anyone out there, let's throw the question out to everybody in chat. Has anyone in chat watched the body cam footage? And if so, did it change your mind toward guilt? Did it change your mind toward innocence? Did it change your mind? It's really not guilt or innocence. It's guilty or not guilty. Our country is not set up where you have to prove your innocence. Our country is set up that the prosecutor has to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So all of this, why doesn't he do this? Why isn't he shown that proof? Because he doesn't have to. Because this isn't Iraq. It's not Iran. It's not communist China. It's not Russia. It's the United States. Okay. That's the standard. So with not guilty. So Nadia is saying that what she's seen so far in the evidence that the public has been permitted to see, she's leaning more toward not guilty. Rochelle is going so far, another channel member, Rochelle, thank you for being here. She's going so far as to say, not only am I finding that the evidence is proving not guilty, I'm finding that the evidence is actually proving him innocent. Way beyond the fact. They haven't shown anything at all. Lovetine is chiming in her opinion. Agreed. William is agreeing with what everyone here is saying. They treat, okay, and the watcher's saying they treated Mr. Kohberger with prejudice from the start. Very strange. None of the standards were followed. Watcher, what do you mean by that? In terms of which standards? And take your time, because there's probably 100 you could pick from. But what standards do you mean that really struck you as, wow, this is strange? Amy's wanting to know, if DNA is inconclusive, how did they clear Jack D and Jack S? Karen is saying, and I don't think this is any reference to Pennsylvania, right, where the Kohberger family live, but she's, because Pennsylvania is known as the Keystone State, even though it's a Commonwealth. It's not a state, it's Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. She's saying, Karen, yes, I watched the Keystone Cops body cam, not guilty. Any documentation, Kathy Mabbitt arriving on scene. I will say, William's saying the judge just didn't seem to be neutral to him. Amy is she's throwing out the fireworks. She's agreeing with a lot of what people are saying, as you guys are engaging in First Amendment protected speech. This is what we're talking about, having conversations, not accusing anyone. We're not accusing anyone. We're not, no witch hunts on anyone. We're just saying, hey, where's the evidence? Where's the beef? We see here. Yeah. Capella. No, that was not me. That was the generosity. Capella is for, I think it was William who gifted the 5. Thank you, William. Please never forget the initial photos and bystander videos of the evening when the agents were awkwardly stepping. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I think what Richard is referring to, remember the photographs of the ISP crime scene investigators? They appeared to be in I think that's the great room, second floor, great room. That house is a little weird. The second floor is the first floor in the back. It's the second floor in the left. In the front, they appeared to be awkwardly stepping around something in the kitchen. Yeah, it was like there was something on the floor. What was it on the floor? I know I can picture that video. It was shot from the outside. It was run by one of the media organizations that were covering the first day. What was it that they were stepping over very gingerly, and we saw all of those officers run up and down and up and down and up and down those steps. What was it that they saw? What was it that they were photographing? Rochelle saying the only reason for so many cover-ups and less is because they knew there was nothing to point to guilt unless they made either that or there was just so many mistakes. I'm keeping my mind open because, listen, at this point, they weren't transparent during the investigation. They kept, we can't release anything. We can't release anything. We can't release a photograph of suspect vehicle 1. We can't release this. We can't release anything from the 911 call. We can't release a transcript of the 911. We can't release anything. This is what other law enforcement agencies do during the investigation before anything is gagged to show that they're being transparent and neutral. They release nothing. Then right away, day 3, here comes the gag order. Can't release, and then everything's under seal. 3 months, no beef, no dinner is what Natty is saying. No beef, no dinner. Phenomenon with Maddie Nails. Okay, brother, interesting. Was it DNA, William? They just appeared to walk so gingerly around that one area. Remember, I can almost see she had the big camera. It was the lady that had the ponytail. She had the white hazmat. And then here's another question: why was it the people that were walking through that crime scene, some of them, no face, nothing covering, and this was not long after COVID. So they must have had access to face mask or something. Forget about the hazmat standard face breathing apparatus. I mean, they didn't even grab a face mask, and they're walking around. And she's walking. I mean, one of them or two of them were like they were walking into 3 Mile Island. The more you look, the more questions that are raised. And I blame this because if they would have released some of the evidence along the way, it wouldn't hit, I think, a lot of people like a train coming at you. Lily, okay. Detective Gilbertson is, okay. I never had heard his name. Okay, Rochelle is pointing out, said it themselves, and I think you're referring to Detective Brett Payne's sworn testimony in the January suppression hearings that were, Hitler released the transcript. Remember, I know because I've read every word of that transcript. If you don't want to read it, it's on the podcast. You can listen to it. Every word of everyone who testified. Yes, he did. Rochelle, Detective Payne testified. Hadn't heard his name until mid-December. The evening of December 19th. Remember when they had that team call? So it wasn't even December in the morning 19th, where you got all day now to kind of go get and do what you need to do. This is the evening, nighttime of the 19th. When they're tired, they're working all day long, the entire day. Now all of a sudden, look at Brian C. Kohberger. Then the word came. And then 10 days later, comes the affidavit of probable cause. Outcast is here. Thank you, Outcast. Hey, let's hear it. We have an independent journalist in the room who's doing a lot to keep the case going, who has released a lot of video that I've never seen before. Outcast, I've been on your channel. I can't tell you how many times with my report of Officer Warner or Gunderson. Oh, here's another interesting fact, Outcast. Now that you're bringing up a Gunderson, Outcast, which of the following first responders did not write a report on November 13th, 2022? Was it Nunez? Was it Warner? Was it Gunderson? Was it Snyder? Or was it Smith? Four of those people, four of those first responders, they went home. I mean, they worked all day. Snyder running around doing overtime, doing three people's jobs at one time as Gunderson's there telling them, well, go up there, take a look here. What are you doing? Take a picture here. It was Gunderson. Gunderson's report from November 13th was written January 24th, 27 days after Mr. Kohberger's arrest. Why? Why wasn't it contemporaneous? Why didn't Shane Gunderson go back to the MPD and start writing his report from supervising all day long and telling people, okay, do this, do that. Snyder, you got to do this, you got to do that. Close the door, get the dog out of here. Let's start removing things from the crime scene. We saw evidence on your channel, Outcast, and on Connor's channel of evidence being removed from the crime scene, something being disturbed from the crime scene. No questions asked. We're not even going to go to the sheath. We're not going to go to the sheath. The dog got removed. Murphy got removed. ISP was en route at that time. ISP had gotten a call at 12:22 per document number 1 in the Idaho State Police reports, right? What's Gunderson doing saying, let's get the dog out of here? And one of you guys in chat said it better than anyone could have. And then taking a contaminated leash and then bringing it to him. You know, why not leave the dog there? Dog had food, give it to him. No, he's decided the dog's going to move. And anything on the dog, what about if that dog had DNA of the perpetrator on him? Right? What if there were drops of red stuff on him? What if there was hair on him? You know when they asked for snips of the dog's hair? January, after Kohberger's arrest, and after they went into his house and they pulled out, remember the hairs? Oh, and people were saying, oh, good guy Murphy. It was nothing. It was nothing. I just can't. I cannot. Outcast, if you could drop your link for people that are not familiar with your channel and Connor's channel in chat, please be sure to do that, because you guys are doing a great job keeping the conversation going. And I do appreciate it as proponents of the First Amendment that you guys are. Very good. And anyone get out of prison? It takes a long time phenomenon. Getting out of prison, it's very hard to get a jury verdict overturned. It's a lot harder to get a conviction overturned. But what's not hurting the case and probably helping it is to keep it alive. Keep talking about it. Keep supporting the independent journalists that are covering the case. Comment, like them, subscribe to them, super chat with them, tell your friends to follow, share, because the more eyes that are on this case, and I'll go so far as to saying even people that think Mr. Kohberger is guilty, they're still, they're putting attention on the case, which is what we need, because the minute that you guys stop talking about the case, look at how long it's taking for Judge Stephen J. Hippler to release documents. And then we got the situation over Laramie, city of Moscow. It's going to be 2 months that temporary restraining case was filed. And the person who signed the warrant, who found probable cause, is the judge. If she says that no photos from that room can be issued, it's going to be, I don't know. I'm going to have a lot of questions. Okay. We got, yes. And Phenomenon is saying, please call. You're not, it's great if you want to call your state representatives. If you live in Idaho, that would be great. But it's really the federal representative. So wherever you live in any of the 50 states, whether you live in, you could be in Nebraska, you could be up in Massachusetts, you could be down in Florida, you could be in Louisiana, like you guys are. The Philippines, a territory of the United States. We got a couple of people in here. Call your representatives at the federal level and let them know that you're concerned about this case from a First Amendment perspective, and that this would probably, Benjamin Franklin would probably be turning over right now, because he was the independent journalist, right? Author of the Pennsylvanian, author of Poor Richard's Almanac. He kept the news going with the colonies and at the start of the country. I think he had a lot to do with that First Amendment looking like it does. And this is just, it's a danger to our First Amendment. Can you imagine if now all of a sudden, okay, trials are going to be closed. Voir dire is going to be closed. Pretrial hearings are going to be closed. Cases are going to be under seal. If someone pleads guilty or they're adjudicated, if they're adjudicated guilty in a court of law, you're going to see the evidence. If they plead guilty 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, a year later, the case is still under seal. Now, that's not good enough. And again, we have to give our props to the author of that dynamite declaration from July 14th, 2025, in support of the media's motion to open up, to unseal all they said, hey, across the board, all the documents, just like you sealed them, you can unseal them now. And she just said what a threat this was, the secrecy of the case, that things just started to spiral, and there seemed to be an acceleration of things under seal as trial started to get closer. Jury instructions, every one of the what? When I saw that, I said to myself, jury instructions are standard. Okay, what is the burden of proof? What's the judge's role? What's the jury's role? What if, you can't, if the person invokes their Fifth Amendment privilege and doesn't speak, you don't use that again. That's in every case. All of them are under seal. All of them are under seal. First Amendment is for everyone except Brian Kohberger, is what the Watcher is saying, right? LOL. Richard is saying, what if connected to the greater United States? Hope so. Yeah, Richard, start calling your people, in Hawaii. Let your officials know this cannot be tolerated. Cannot be tolerated. Hey, okay, Capelli is making a good point. If someone would type a letter of concerned interest to direct to our representatives, I'd be glad to send it out. I just don't have time. I listen and work at the same time. And so, you would not be referring to, Capelli, you would not be referring to a Fifth Amendment protected to petition the government, right? Remember, the brilliance of the framers of our Constitution and the 13 colonies that demanded the Bill of Rights. Amendment 1, freedom of speech, of religion, speech, press, assemble peacefully, and petition government. I think that's what Capelli's asking for. If somebody could draft, circulate it so that people can send and start calling and letting people know, look, we're concerned about our First Amendment. Okay. Okay, if they get 10 calls, they listen because nobody calls. Phenomenon is bringing up a great point. Everyone's thinking, oh, I'll leave it like with voting. I'm not going to vote. Somebody next door will vote. 10 other people will vote. If one person calls, it's going to get their attention. That's a great point. Great point. Okay, any other comments regarding our topic today, which is our First Amendment as applied to Idaho versus Kohberger, and the continuing refusal to unseal this case or in a timely manner. Case closed. Months later, case still sealed. Idaho versus Kohberger and the First Amendment. Please take a look at our content from today. It's really a to-do, how to get you to the declaration of the journalist that I had said, where she said that this case is the most sealed case she has ever reported upon in 25 years, and she's right there in Idaho for the AP. She gives the statistics, how many orders to seal documents were in place, how many of them were attributed to Judge Hippler. It was like half of them, if I'm recalling, were Hippler. Hippler only had this case from, what was it, mid-September 25th, 14 through July 23rd. Before that, December 29th, it was in Ladau County, but yet half the orders came from him. So yes, if you could listen to that, if you listen to one content, please listen to that. It's so important. It puts you, how you get on the case summary page, what to look for, the icon, how you can tell if something is sealed versus it's not sealed, and so forth. And please, yes, and Capelli, yes, thank you. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the independent journalists that were here today, and Outcast and Dago and Puerto Rican and the others. Please support them. Keep the conversation going. Like their content. Share it with your friends. Do what you can, and then contact your representatives. Okay. Full throttle. Richard is declaring it's full throttle, sending love and aloha. Okay, everyone. I am going to conclude this live. It was great. I thank you so much. Thank you, J-Rod. Here from the beginning, here to the end. I appreciate your time. Please be kind to one another. Capelli is saying thank you. Thank you all very much for being here today. This is Kathy. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. And until next time, First Amendment, Idaho versus Kohberger. Take care, everyone.